everyone, and welcome to Functional Fertility, the podcast designed to demystify your hormones, up-level your lifestyle, and supercharge your fertility potential. I'm your host, Dr. Kalea Wattles, and today's episode is all about support in your fertility journey, no matter what that looks like for you. I'm happy to welcome today's guest, Jess Tims, to introduce us to something that is totally new to the show by teaching us about her work as a fertility doula. Jess is a certified fertility doula with a master's degree in communication, and most importantly, she's a mom who understands firsthand that the path to pregnancy is not always easy. Jess's own struggle with unexplained infertility inspired her to become certified to support women on their fertility journey. And she now uses mind-body medicine to support women through the ups and downs of infertility, pregnancy loss, and IVF. We're so happy to have her with us on the show today. Welcome, Jess.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kalea. I'm so happy to be here. And I'm so grateful that you're open to the conversation about fertility doulas.
Yeah, I think we need to teach this community about what a fertility doula does and what you have to offer, because I have to be honest, this was even new to me. I love doulas, and I have a lot of experience with doulas who work, in the birth space, but I love the idea of having this kind of support pre-pregnancy and when we're navigating potentially really challenging struggles and experiences and topics. So let's give our audience a primer and start out today. Just let us know, what is a fertility doula and how can you support your clients on their fertility journey?
Yeah. So to be honest, I didn't know what a fertility doula was either. And when I started wanting to do this work, it just came about that a certification exists and fertility doulas are a thing. So essentially a doula is like a female supporter, is like the translation. So fertility doula is supporting women mostly, but I support couples as well, in the preconception phase. So they're who are on their fertility journey, either with fertility education or more of that support piece. So fertility doulas work differently. Some meet in person. I'm all virtual. So I'm meeting with clients on private virtual sessions. And as you mentioned, we dive into that mind-body piece a lot to really navigate that emotional roller coaster together. Because what I'm finding is, one, there's a huge lack of support. And a fertility doula can fill that role. But a lot of the times, because fertility is so sensitive, a doula can fill that role when you don't have anybody else you can trust, or maybe you don't want to share the super personal information with like all of your family and friends, and you just want someone to be there for you as you're going through your journey. And so that is what a fertility doula does and how they support.
It's so beautiful. Like you said, sometimes we just don't have these outlets. And I have this part of my intake form when I'm seeing new patients where it checks in on their community and their level of social support and like, who do you have on your team that you can go to with these topics? And a lot of people say, I don't have anyone. I don't want to talk about it with my friends. Like, I don't want to make people uncomfortable. It seems so sensitive and so vulnerable. So it's so beautiful to have someone who's designed to hold that space. And I know that no matter, if you're doing IVF or you've been diagnosed with unexplained infertility, or even if you're just trying to conceive for the first time on your own, it can stir up so many emotions about what will my life look like? And what if this doesn't work? And how do I communicate with my partner? Do you find that there is a role for the care and support of a fertility doula in a whole range of trying to conceive experiences?
Absolutely. 100%. And honestly, that was one of my biggest challenges when I first started, because I kind of almost felt overwhelmed. Like, everybody needs this and can use this. Who can I support first? Because as you mentioned, like, trying to get pregnant really taps into the most sensitive parts of us. And when it's not happening right away, that creates like doubt and maybe some fear. And then that just breeds and spreads. It can change the dynamic with your partner. And when you're further along in the journey, whether you're experiencing like pregnancy loss or using IVF, that is a whole other kind of unexplored territory that most of us have never been through, that we don't talk about a lot. And so it can just be a very fear-filled space. So having a fertility doula truly at any stage is appropriate. I always say it's like when you're ready for the support, that's when you should work with a fertility doula.
And I'm assuming that for some people, when they need that support is actually before they've really struggled, they just want to be proactive. And so I guess what I'm trying to get at is you don't have to wait. You don't have to wait until you're like feeling demoralized before you reach out for help, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, hindsight, like if I would have known what I know now, I would have worked with a fertility doula when I first was like, I'm ready to be a mom. And I would have saved myself so much time and so much heartache because it took me a long time to learn a lot of the stuff that I can teach people in one session, right? So like, you try a Google search, you try meeting with your doctor and you get tidbits, but having someone as part of your whole team, like working with, you're working with your doctor, you might have a couple, good books, but then also having somebody that can keep your mindset straight and your relationship with your partner like intact is really helpful.
Yeah. Well, thinking about the real world applications of this, I wanted to get your insight on something that came up for me in clinic this week. I was talking to a patient who's been diagnosed with unexplained infertility. And, we're doing a lot of investigating, which is great. And we're getting a lot of good information. But in the process of investigating, it's always on her mind, right? Because we've got the lab draws, we've got the lab reviews, she's got the appointments. And she said, I am so consumed by this whole entire investigation. I think about it the moment I wake up until the moment I go to sleep at night because it's, we're doing all the work and we're doing the lifestyle changes and we're doing all these things and I'm consumed by it. And I see that pattern in so many people. I have been that person who was consumed by it. I'm so interested to hear what advice you might have for us when we're on this journey. And the work needs to be done to kind of uncover some of these aspects of fertility that we can truly improve. But it starts to feel like it's our entire identity.
100%. And I can completely relate to her feeling because that's where I was. It was all consuming. Like I look back on, it took me over 2 years to get pregnant. And I look back on those 2 years and I like don't remember anything. I just remember trying and really obsessing like over it. And so to answer the question, when I work with people, I do take a mind body approach. I feel like I'm a big believer in all the research on the mind body, but the mind is so powerful and it can just take over your whole day, all of your emotions and all of the things. So really being able to give tools to like separate that. And finding trust. So there's a couple ways. So one is if you can find trust in the work that you're doing on your physical body. So when you're working with someone like you, Dr. Kalea, and getting the test results and doing the lifestyle changes and all of that, like that's not for nothing. And you can trust in that you are doing everything you have your power to do. And then taking the mind separately. And it's my job to help women find the tool that works for them. So I use a big range of tools, things like guided meditation, journaling, breath work, like these things that we hear about, we don't all do, and we don't always apply to the journey, but they really work. And so my goal with every client is to find the thing that works for them. It's the thing that brings you joy. So for some, it's writing. For some, it's painting. For some women, they really just want a few minutes of like peace with a guided meditation to help kind of bring them back into their body and back into the present moment. And then we also focus on like the big picture, because those in between moments, like between doctor's appointments, between getting results back, those times can feel really long. And that like 2-week wait feels like forever. And if you have the tools to kind of bring you back into the now and then focus on the big picture, it can help put things back into perspective and it doesn't feel so overwhelming. Now, with all of that, that's so much easier said than done. So even if you find the thing and you're like, okay, I like journaling, like actually journaling and like actually doing that work is a task, right? Like, and it's hard to do. I like to give the example. My husband every night sets out my floss and my toothbrush with toothpaste on it so that every night I actually floss my teeth. And having a fertility doula is like that, like somebody who's like actually giving you the tool to do the thing that you need to do.
I love that. How romantic, by
I
the
know.
way, to set out your toothbrush like that. So nice.
He's the
Um,
best.
you're absolutely right, though, that, if it's journaling, maybe someone thinks they'd love to journal, but they need some journaling prompts or
Yeah.
something. These are the tools. And I think it's really important that you pointed out that there's a whole variety of things that we can do, and we're not all going to love all of them. And I use myself as an example that I am not someone who thrives with a deep breathing practice. It's just not, I just don't love it. It's just not my thing. But a guided imagery, wow, that is so powerful and so impactful for me. And sometimes it takes some experimentation. You don't know unless you try, and then you find the thing that works for you. So
Mhm.
having someone who can even present those options and those nuances, I think, wow, how incredibly helpful.
Yeah. And somebody to remind you to use them, right? And like that regular check-in is so helpful.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that came up for me when I was listening to you speak is this this theme I see of when we're going through our fertility journey, we often have to become our own advocate, for
Mhm.
better or for
Mhm.
worse. We have had to do our own research and be the one to do the homework and to bring the questions to our doctor and to have that advocacy role. And so sometimes when I'm working with new patients and I can tell that the weight is just crushing, I will invite them, like, turn the medical management part over to me. That
Yeah.
is my job and that is what I do. And I can have good boundaries about it, right? Like I can log off at the end of the day and create some space where that's your real life. So give me some of that weight to hold. And I imagine that's what you're doing too in some way, is like, let me take some of this so that you don't have to shoulder it all on your own.
100%. It's such a beautiful way to say it. And like what I thought about was like not only your way, but then the way of the expectations with your partner. Or, a lot of women come to me and they have like, they've had a bad conversation with their mom or their friend and they don't feel like, they're being supported by their community. It's like, give that to me. Like, you don't need to hang on to that. So absolutely. Yeah. Carving out that space and really holding that space for people is really a big part of my job.
Yeah, yeah. Can we can we talk about a special topic here, because I know
Mhm.
from your social media and from the work that you do that you spend some time working with those who are navigating thinking about another pregnancy after they've had pregnancy loss. And this is a big portion of my patient population too, and I know there's so many emotions and so much, like you said, fear or uncertainty that can be wrapped around this whole scenario. So I'm wondering, what are some of the tools or the strategies that you use to work with your clients who've had pregnancy loss in the past, but now they're feeling ready and they want to try again?
Yeah, I'm so grateful that you asked this question for this specific population. I recently started an in-person pregnancy loss support group in the LA and OC area. And I mean, just having like that group setting, I really believe that women heal in circles, like with each
Mhm.
other. Like that alone can be healing. And so it's been such a beautiful space to hold for people who are currently navigating pregnancy loss. But one of the tips, like if you don't have a group like that or you're not in my area, um, is definitely to process through the loss so that you can move forward. And it looks different for everyone, but having some type of either like a way to honor, like a ceremony, or even just working through the emotion rather than like shoving it down, ignoring it, shutting the door. We're really good at that because emotions are hard to feel. But the only way is really to go through it. It's easier done with someone like a fertility doula to guide you through that. But processing through that, and give yourself as much time as you need, right? And do that processing work. And then you will be on the other side of it. You'll be able to honor that pregnancy and have faith and hope for the next one without that big fear bubble that can just be like a cloud over you when you're just trying to like get on to the next pregnancy, right? So I always encourage women to give themselves the time they need to process. And oftentimes it's going to be quicker than you think, but give yourself that time and then you can try again.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. I had someone the other day who has a history of pregnancy loss, and we're working to get her ready to try again. And she was like, is this normal that, every year when this anniversary comes around, even though it's been, 3 years, that I feel sad? And I was like, totally. That is totally normal if that is what is coming up for you, and no need to feel shame or embarrassment or anything about that. And so I just really am grateful for the work that you're doing to help people to honor the feelings that are truly coming up for them, but maybe create some ritual or some ceremony around it to honor it in a way that feels really intentional.
Yeah. And there's a perspective that I use with clients that can be very helpful. It's not for everyone, but I'll share it here in case it can land on the ears that need to hear it. So, the perspective is that when you're welcoming a baby in and welcoming their new little soul with a pregnancy and then to come out on the outside, that baby's soul is always with you until they are here, until they're born. And so even through loss, maybe the body didn't work for them. Maybe there was, something in that wasn't going to work for that little soul. And so you experience a pregnancy loss. However, you didn't lose the soul and they're still with you. And so that perspective has really helped some clients in their healing to know that they didn't lose that little one's soul. They're still with them. They just needed something physically different.
I think that will land on the people who need it as they listen to this. And something so comforting about that invisible string still being there and having that connecting piece. That was really beautiful. And I'm wondering if this comes up with your clients, that maybe they're trying to kind of honor those emotions and move through that process, but their partner is processing differently.
Yeah.
And do you are you able to offer some guidance of how, not even that, we have to process the same way, but how do you connect and talk and work with a partner who is processing totally differently?
Such a valuable question. It's so important because what happens, especially through a loss, is you become each other's everything, right? Like you're becoming the therapist and the lover and like the healer, like all of the things. And it can feel confusing. You never expected to go through this together. And so like my number one piece of advice, and that I work with people through, is just to have clear and open communication, talking about how you're feeling today, setting aside time to work through it together if that feels right for you. If not, allowing time to be separate to process. But not talking about it is just going to ignore the problem and kind of make those feelings feel bigger because they're not feeling heard. But just having clear, open communication can allow the space for that clearing and healing. And knowing, like you said, like everybody processes is different, and that's okay. But unless you talk about it, you won't know what the other needs.
Yeah, I find that the biggest obstacle is just getting it out in the open. Like it's got to come up to come out. And when we brush it under the rug, or if we just ignore it, it's going to become bigger. And so I think the communication piece, it sounds simple, right? When we just say like, well, you've got to talk about it. But in practice, it's actually really challenging.
Yeah. And I've had couples sit in front of me who, like, the moment I ask the question, like they both just break down because nobody has asked them yet. And that's okay. That's what the space is for. But having someone to, whether it's a fertility doula or somebody who's like a fertility therapist or somebody that you just both trust, that you can help guide you through this time, like you're worth that. And it's worth taking the time to do that.
Co-signed. I'm going to co-sign that message there.
Yeah.
Another aspect that I thought would be interesting to touch on is sometimes when my patients get pregnant after a history of loss, they're like, I am scared to get excited about this. I'm
Mm,
scared to feel this connection. I'm definitely guarded. And I totally get it. It's so vulnerable to let your mind dream and to think about, the holidays and the birth plan and all of these things. Is that something that comes up in your group with some frequency?
yeah, that's it. Yes. I'll just say yes. Um, absolutely. And what I find is that everyone has a point in time where they're telling themselves, once I reach this point,
Mm,
I will feel okay. And
yeah.
everybody's is different. And so really the goal is like getting to that point with support and then transitioning to like a birth doula or someone who can support their pregnancy and allow them, that experience. But honoring your time frame. Like if you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to feel that, like sit with it and really think like, when will I feel okay? Because you will, right? Like it will
Mhm.
come,
Yeah.
and trust that, but give yourself that time.
Yeah. Nothing needs to be forced. I think that's kind
No.
of a takeaway that I'm hearing from all of this.
And there's a lot that happens with expectations of others here. So a lot of women will share with me like, oh, well, I told my family last time at this point in the pregnancy, I feel the pressure to tell them this time. And it's like, it can be different and that's okay. Not letting those outside expectations influence your decisions is really hard to do, but honoring yourself and honoring the boundaries that you need, until you feel like, okay, now's the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking of a specific scenario and just off the top of my head right now, would love to get your thoughts. But
Yeah.
we all have that like the first ultrasound. And if you had a history where you went to that first ultrasound and didn't see what you wanted to see, ooh, how activating to go to that. I know, chills, to go to
So
that
many
first
chills.
ultrasound the next time. And so I find that sometimes there's almost like an avoidance. Like I don't want to go because I don't even want to know. I want to live in this blissful state where I can believe that everything is fine. And I'm scared of what this image will tell me.
Yeah.
Is that something that comes up with your clients too? And do you have any advice if anyone's listening and they are like preparing for that appointment right now?
Absolutely. It definitely comes up. It is definitely okay to feel that. It is a trauma trigger. Something traumatic
Mhm.
happened to you the last time. So, of
Yep.
course, your subconscious mind is trying to keep you safe again. And so, a lot of times we work on how can you make it different?
Mhm.
So some women even need like a full different doctor because the whole
Yeah.
experience was so traumatic that they need to switch
Can't even
practices.
be in that room.
Can't
Yeah.
even go. Yeah.
Hmm.
Some women need to bring somebody else with them, or go alone, right? Like it was like too traumatic with their partner or whoever went with them. So they're like, I'm going to choose to go alone. But doing what you can to make that experience different will help the mind not go like snap immediately back to that traumatic experience.
Oh, that's really good advice, actually, because there are little tweaks that we can make probably no matter what to just experience the whole thing a little bit differently.
Like even like if you're like me, I'm always a appointment in the morning person. Like I love to get my appointments done
Yeah.
in the morning.
Hmm.
But I would make mine like the latest appointment available, like at the end of the day, or you vice versa. If you're, do it
Yeah.
first thing in the morning, so even changing that can help your mind feel more at ease because that's new and it's not remembering the trauma that happened the last time.
Yeah. Go on a walk, like do a
Yeah,
routine that makes you feel good, and then go to your appointment where you're already feeling in your best self.
100%.
Yeah. Okay, I
Yeah.
love it. I don't know about your practice, but in mine, I find myself like things come in waves and I find myself telling everybody a similar piece of advice. Like maybe it's because of where I'm at or things that I'm researching, but I'll find myself kind of sharing a similar take with a lot of people all at once. What's going on in your practice right now? And is there kind of a theme and you find yourself telling almost everybody some version of this thing?
Yes. It's funny because it has changed. It's like when I first started, I was cycle tracking was like the thing. I told everybody because nobody understands their cycle. I didn't.
Yeah.
And I still teach that for free because I feel like it's such a important thing that we all are missing in our fertility education. But more recently, I'm glad you pointed that out. Like it does change. And more recently, the thing I keep telling women is to love yourself, to love yourself and to find a way to bring joy back in because this journey can suck that out so quickly.
Yeah.
And like, there's nothing wrong with you. You are not broken. And just to find a way to give yourself a little bit of love every day. And it is the message I've been finding myself repeating like over and over. And a lot of times we have to hear it from someone else to start like kickstart it in our own mind. And so that would be the thing I want everyone to know is that there's nothing wrong with you and you're not broken. And please love yourself today.
Please love yourself. And the logical part of my mind who has done some of this work, I can imagine myself sitting in the office and being like, I want to love myself. I really do. How do I do it? Like, what do I do? Do I book myself a spa appointment? Do I just use nice language to myself? I'm sure this comes up and just want your off the cuff, like hot take on what do we do to love ourselves?
Yeah, especially when you're talking about fertility, because you feel like it's my body. I can't trust my body anymore. Like there's all this, it's like physically manifesting, right? So yeah, exactly. Like, well, how that sounds easy. It sounds nice. Like, how do I do that? Find something physical and tangible that you do love about yourself. So whether that's like, it can be like, I love my laugh. I love my hair. I love that. Like I personally run marathons. I love that my body is strong enough to do that. If it's like I love my good hugs that I give people. Like it can be one simple, tangible thing that's all your mind needs to prove to yourself that you're lovable and that this is the thing you really love about yourself. So it can be hard, right? But just finding that one thing and that will sprout more, right? Like 5 things and then maybe 10 things and really holding on to that. And when those thoughts of I'm broken, there's something wrong with me, everybody else can get pregnant and I can't, like when those start to come in, actively like pushing those out and filling it with, and I love how strong my body is, right?
The related benefit, I guess, of doing that practice is what stood out to me. We talked in the beginning about how our fertility journey can become our whole identity. And, you pointed out, like, I love that my body's capable of doing this run. It's like, oh, I'm also a runner. Or maybe it's like, wow, I love how creative I am. Oh, I'm also a writer. And allowing ourselves to honor that we have a multifaceted identity, and it starts to bring out some of those pieces, which for me anyway, was really important and useful.
Absolutely. And it's something that's going to serve you. I really feel like all of the tools I work with, there are things that are going to serve you into motherhood.
Yes.
Because once that baby is here and you step into motherhood, this is stuff that happens all the time in postpartum, like the whole way. And this is a whole other conversation, right? Like, but keeping that love for yourself is a gift you can give yourself today, and in the future.
And I promise I'm not going to take us off track. I'm not going to like turn this into a whole other thing, but how powerful if we all were raised in a setting where we saw the women who raised us able to speak kindly and to love on themselves. I just think I can only speak from my own experience, but if I would have seen the women in my life doing that, I think I would have turned out a different human, to be honest.
I have the whole body chills again. Yes. Yes. I wish I would have had that as a role model also.
And I'm a girl mom. And so I think about these things that if I can apply these skills in a visible way to my daughters, how powerful for the generations to come.
Yeah. It's funny because I'm a boy mom and I feel like even him having like the sensitivity to be open with how much he
Yes.
loves himself. Like that
Yes.
would be so neat. It will be. So
Yes. So powerful. Um, I I wanted I'm conceptualizing a timeline in my mind right now of like when someone works with a fertility doula, we said, okay, start, in your preconception time so that you have that guidance. Do you work with your clients through pregnancy, or is there a point they get pregnant and they move on to another type of provider? Or I'm just so curious.
yeah. Yeah. So often I'm part of their team, right? Like they have their OB, they have me as their fertility doula. Sometimes they might be working with somebody that's doing acupuncture or whatnot.
Mhm.
And I will work with them as long as they need the fertility support. Often though, like the most often we're into the first trimester. And
Okay.
then once they enter the second trimester, I transition them either to a birth doula or whatever their plan is
Love.
moving forward. But yeah, it's common that we stay working together in that first trimester because there's a lot going on during that time.
There's a lot going on. There's a
Yeah.
lot coming up. It's a whole change. Yes. Okay.
Mhm.
This is great. As everybody's building their dream team, knowing that you can have multiple providers that serve different purposes in your life. And when everybody is utilizing their strengths, really, we benefit as the patient or the client when we have this care team that's kind of all doing their best work.
100%. And it's so refreshing to me when I meet practitioners like you, Dr. Kalea, who are open to that rather than closed, because I really believe that as women's, especially, the more support we have, like the bigger our tribe, the better we all are.
Yes, 100% agreed. And with that being said, I'm wondering if you have any, I don't want to say case study, but some example of a client or a situation that's just memorable to you that stands out and highlights the impact of having a fertility doula, something that we can think about and show how your work made such a difference.
Yeah, the one that pops immediately into my mind, I recently got to meet her son. So he's now like almost 8 months. And so I got to meet him, and it was just meeting the babies is my favorite part. But
The best.
she had multiple losses, opted to use IVF, and this was all before we started working together. Was had a really challenging egg retrieval, did get pregnant using IVF her first round, which was awesome. And so we started working together actually once she was pregnant. But her mind, again, like she was a high functioning professional. A lot of the women I work with are high business owners, high functioning professionals. They have so much going on. And she's like, I can't handle this pressure and this fear in my daily life. And so we met once a week for her whole first trimester. And it was just like that in between space. And every meeting she had something new, right? Like something new that was triggering or something new with her partner that was challenging. And it was such a beautiful few weeks to work through together. And then her moment came and she's like, okay, now I feel confident in this pregnancy. And I checked in with her a couple times throughout, and she was like, I just feel so good being pregnant, and had a beautiful delivery, and now has this beautiful baby. And it's just such a reminder that even though the beginning started so hard, that having the support rather than trying to like navigate it on her own and just like accept what was happening, she was like, no, I need the support like now. And she got it. And she's like, I look back on my journey and it was so beautiful because I had the support I needed.
Yeah. Oh, that gave me the chills when you said like she found her moment. She had
Yeah.
that moment where there was this energetic shift of like, wow, I can ease into this now and feel some peace to be present in this, which th- just to think when I was thinking of my last pregnancy, I probably really could have used some of the support because I was so activated by the whole thing that I just wasn't present in it. And now I look back and like, oh, I have a little bit of sadness about that. So the fact she could have that moment and then look back on it as a peaceful journey and a beautiful journey is so wonderful.
Yeah,
I
it's so funny you said that because she actually just reached out. They're getting ready for baby number two. And she's like, can we work together again? So,
Yep.
yeah.
I imagine our listeners will want to know where to find you so they can learn more. Will you tell everyone where to find you and what offerings you have coming up?
Absolutely. Please come find me. I am on all the social media channels as @Fertility Jess. So Fertility Jess. I have free YouTube meditations. If you're somebody who's hearing this and you're like, okay, I don't know where to start, go check out the guided meditations on YouTube as a simple place to start with the mind-body connection. And I'm currently getting ready to launch a new free 2-day workshop called Future Mama. And it's going to dive into all the cycle tracking stuff that I love, but also this love yourself piece. So we're going to do some really like workshop style, getting into your subconscious mind and reprogramming it to implement the self-love piece. So if that sounds interesting to you, come find me and sign up and we'll go through all that together. But I'm also at fertilityjess.com where you can find all my stuff.
Amazing. Jess, I wanted to thank you for introducing many of us, to the work of a fertility doula. I so admire and respect all the work that you're doing, and I think so many will benefit. So I wanted to extend my gratitude that you're on the show and letting us know about this topic. To all of our listeners, I want to thank you so much for tuning in and trusting us as a source of information on your fertility journey. And to our show's producer, Paola Martini, always so grateful for making my podcast dreams come true. Just a delight to be with you, Jess, and we'll see everyone soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Did you love this episode and want to hear more? Head over to drkaleawattles.com/podcast where you can find more episodes on all things fertility.